But it's interesting, back when he was 15 or 16 years old in California, he's just Tom Brady. He's just one of the guys. Nobody really knows who he is. The same, actually, when he goes to Michigan. He's competing with Drew Henson for the starting job there. And when he gets to the NFL, we all know the story about how he was passed over by so many teams before he was finally drafted. And in his first couple of years there with the Patriots, he wasn't really who he is now. And now he's Tom Brady. We're talking about a legendary type quarterback in the NFL. How is the relationship with the receivers in terms of trying to get over the awe and the fame and the fortune and all and the Gisele Bundchen and all that part of the Tom Brady story?
I think what stands out there is that he doesn't present himself that way in the locker room. One of the guys I talked to in the story is Chris Hogan, who of course has been the Patriots' best deep threat this year, and their second leading receiver behind Julian Edelman in terms of catches, and a guy who really a lot of people didn't know if he's sort of been a journeyman player for the last 3 or 4 years, was a college lacrosse player, and the Patriots signed him in the offseason as a free agent, and Hogan talks about coming to Foxborough last spring to the start of OTAs, what they call organized team activities, which are sort of what we used to call mini camps, and he was in the facility. And he sees Tom Brady in the weight room on his first day there. And Hogan is very nervous, and he's not sure how to go about this. And as he's trying to figure out how to approach Tom Brady, Brady comes up to him and introduces himself and say, hey, I remember you did this, and I like the way you did this in that game, and we're really looking forward to having you here. And Hogan was completely blown away. I mean, he thought he was going to have to introduce himself and explain to Tom Brady who he was. And instead, Brady knew everything about him. And I think that speaks to the fact that, Brady is this hyper celebrity in the bigger world. But inside the locker room, he's just this guy who's the quarterback and wants to get his teammates together and wants to work together and doesn't put himself on a higher level except through his work ethic, where he sets an example for everybody.
Tim, what other stories from Brady's past receivers stood out to you?
There was an interesting one with, one of the interesting things was to talk to the guys that were with him way back in the day. One of those guys I actually wrote about for SI.com, a guy named John Kirby, who was the guy that initiated that relationship between Brady and the family in San Francisco who lost their son during the summer, and Brady wrote that family a letter. But there was also another story that with a high school receiver, his number one receiver in high school was a guy named Johnny Takagino. And Johnny Takagino is now he's the main cook in his family's Italian restaurant in Elk Grove, California. And when I called him to talk about Brady, he was very standoffish. He was basically said, look, I've got 4 children, and I work in a restaurant, and I don't get a chance to watch football games. And I'm sure Tom's doing great. I love playing with him, but we don't stay in touch because I don't want to be that guy that has to be connected to the big celebrity. And we talked for a while about that. He told some great stories about playing with Brady. He's got a scar on his chin from diving for a loose ball at a basketball game with Brady. But he said at the end, he said, make sure you do something for me. When you see Tommy, tell him I said hi. And I think that's kind of like the guy wants to say that I really don't need to be connected to this big celebrity, but at the end he said, I really would like to be connected to this guy that I played high school football with. And the other one I'll say is that Ty Streets, who was one of his favorite receivers at Michigan, said that, when Brady was, and you mentioned Drew Henson, that he had to compete with, but he also had to compete with Brian Greasy earlier in his career. And Brady thought he should have been the starter when he was a sophomore, and Greasy beat him out. Michigan won a national championship. And Ty Streets said back then, you practice all day, and then we're all dragging our butts off the field, and you look over and Tom's getting a bunch of footballs and garbage cans and throwing balls into garbage cans from a long way away as a accuracy drill. And we're all like yelling across, hey, Tom, practice is over. We're done. And he said Tom would just look back at us and wave his hand. And he said with him, Streets just said it was just work, 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 work.